Hey everybody, I'm John Halpin with FoxSports.com. I'm here again with Matt Lutovsky from the Sporting News. We're going to talk some fantasy football today. We decided that we're going to talk about some polarizing draft players. If you look, Matt, I like using Fantasy Pros for a comparison of what people like us are thinking. And we look at some guys today who are sort of all over the board. Some guys are, but everybody knows sort of where they're picking. Say Arian Foster, he's one of the top 5 running backs. Might be 30, might be 5th. But there are some guys. Well, maybe he's 12th, and maybe he's 30th. Mm-hmm. Who do you give me one player who you feel like you like more than everybody else does?
Boy, well, I tell you, of the guys that like you put on your list, the guy that stood out to me was like Lamar Miller, because I think people are leery of him because of 2 years ago, which I get. He really wasn't very good, but last year he was very good. I mean, almost 5 yards a carry. His rookie year, he was over 5 yards a carry. He's still young. He really didn't get hurt at all last year. There weren't a lot of worries. I know they went and drafted a back this year, but that was in the 5th round. So I think when you kind of put all that together, there's way more positive than negatives. I kind of like that offense as an up-and-coming offense. It just seems to me like he's, running back's such a tough position nowadays to find. It seems like he's a good back with a lot of upside, with explosive ability. Seems like the kind of guy I want on my team. I don't know why there seems to be as much fluctuation in determining his value as there is.
Okay, so I've got Lamar Miller 17th on my running back list. I think people are scared of J.H.I. a little bit. Mm-hmm. Where do you I'm going to check Fantasy Pros real quick. They've got Miller. The consensus is 17th. Where do you have him?
I think we have him, I want to say like right around between 14th and 16th. So we're about the same, maybe a little higher on him than most people. But you look at some of the backs in that area around it. You got some guys who are guys I like, but are unproven. Like, let's be honest, Latavius Murray's unproven, Carlos Hyde's unproven, Melvin Gordon's certainly unproven. We like them. I think we have all of them ranked above them. And sometimes I sit there and go, well, why? We got the guy who's been in the league who averages 5 yards a carry and he's 25 years old. Why are we so scared of him? I guess 2 years ago, fantasy owners always remember when they were burned, right? They remember that more than they remember the success, and he's really getting that held against him.
All right, everybody. Before we move on, remember this: if you might be listening to this on the Fox Sports Fantasy 15 podcast. We're doing Google Hangout combo podcast. If you're watching the Hangout, thank you. We'll have more of them this season. If you're listening on the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes. Look for the Fantasy 15. Subscribe to it. Same thing on SoundCloud. Also, Matt and I like to answer questions on Twitter. I'm at jhalpin37. He's at mlutovsky, Lutovsky. Please ask us questions. We're happy to answer them, especially now that football draft season is just about underway for people. All right, we're going to get back to some of those other polarizing guys. And we're going to start a court. Basically, we're going to build a team here. We're going to talk about a team that we can start with some of these quarterbacks. I'm going to start with Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford is a little all over the board. I'm going to check my ranking. Our Fox consensus is 21st. I have him 23rd. We have at Fantasy Pros, real quick, I think people like Bradford more than I do, really. People have Bradford at 17th. Where do you have him?
Yeah, we have him right in that area too, and he's a tough one to figure out because so much of it's just based on the offense, right? But even then, he has to stay healthy, which he hasn't been able to do. So to me, he's one of those first backups off the board, but you're not drafting him as a starter, right? You just can't trust him.
Yeah. The injury history worries you some. When he plays, I mean, maybe the offense he was in held him back. And the thing is, with the Eagles, a lot of imagination in that offense. They put the quarterback in position to succeed, but they also like to run the ball a lot. And especially with the two backs, the first year with Kelly, they ran the ball more than they did last year. This year, I wonder if they're going to go back to that a little more, just because you got Murray and you got Matthews and you've got Sproles, who won't run much; he'll catch more. But it seems to me they're going to. I wonder if the volume's going to be high enough on Bradford. I mean, do you see him as more of is he an upside guy, or is he just going to be pretty solid, steady, 225 and a score every week?
Yeah, no, I think you're right about them running the ball. That's something they like to do more, I think, than people totally realize. I just think with Bradford, I think he's talented. I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. I just think he's a talented quarterback. Like you said, he was in a bad system. He didn't have good receivers around him. To me, that might be the biggest question mark. Are those receivers in Philly going to be good enough? Like, I think we like the guy. We like Jordan Matthews. We like Algahar. We know Sproles can catch the ball and they're tight ends, but I don't know if they're good enough to kind of maybe make him a lot better than he is. But if you look at his last year, 2013, he was playing pretty well before he got hurt. He had 16 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, I believe, something like, or 14 to 4 before he got hurt, which is pretty good. I think he can make smart decisions. I think he's in the right offense for him now, a little closer to what he did in college. So, yeah, I don't know if you can go in saying, oh, he's going to get 4,300 yards and 38 touchdowns. Like, that's, I think, too lofty. But I think he can be a good quarterback. He could crack the top 12. Like I said before, he's kind of that top backup off the board to me.
See, the thing about him is I think he's okay. But when I look at anybody, quarterback too, he's got upside. If you're in, let's say, a best ball league, I can totally see getting Bradford.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys who I look at and I say, there's 20 quarterbacks that I see maybe, and I say, that guy's starting for his team all year unless he gets hurt. Mm-hmm. In Bradford, I go, probably. But you never know. Like, there's a floor there. And look, if he gets benched, you can cut him and he's your second quarterback. It's not the worst thing that ever happened. But that's one of the things that holds my opinion of him back a little bit. But all right, next up, let's go running back. Joseph Randle. We talked about him a little bit before we started today. He's an interesting one. I'm looking at those Fantasy Pros rankings. His best one is 15 at running back. His worst one is 47. I'm at 29. It looks like he's going to get the job. He's better than Darren McFadden, but is he a good back or just a guy?
Yeah, I know he's a guy. I know we have him at 36 because we're like, all right, let's put him as that last flex guy to kind of cover ourselves a little bit. We're still calling him a starter. We don't know. He's tough. It's funny what I was saying about Miller. For whatever reason, doesn't totally apply to him. He was awful 2 years ago. I know he didn't have a super high volume of playing, but he was awful. He averaged 3 yards a carry, and maybe chalk that up to being a rookie. I don't know, whatever you want to do. But then last year he comes and he was like 7 yards a carry. Again, limited playing time, but I have no idea what to make of him. This is the guy that I feel like there's no in between. He's either 1,300 yards or he's third stringer who hardly ever plays. He's a guy that probably won't be on my team. I don't know when's the right spot to take him. I'm sure in every draft I do, there's going to be someone who likes him way more than I do, and so be it. I'm just going to let him take him. We know with that offensive line, if he's playing, he could put up big numbers, but I just don't think I trust him enough. And he's gotten in trouble too. That can't be overlooked. You don't know one more thing, and all of a sudden that could cost him too. I just don't think I trust him enough to invest that high of a pick in him.
I think you're right. I think you hit it right on the head. Someone's going to like him more than I will, just because he could have a big year, and the offensive line's very good. McFadden's there, and look, McFadden's not good, but he's there, and you never know. And supposedly Ryan Williams, there's a little bit of buzz about him. I think Randall's the most likely one to get the job. And behind that line, you're right, he could run for 1,300 yards. I don't know that I trust him either. I don't think I trust him enough to invest a running back 2 slot on draft day. One more back. Duke Johnson. This guy, okay, where we are with the Browns, and I'm going to check Duke Johnson's his ranking here. He's 42nd among running backs. I think I'd like him 42nd. Some people have him in the top 30. The best ranking is top 30. He's a guy who, the Browns running back situation is, they had Crowell and West last year. Well, West, they don't seem to like enough. They find ways not to use him. They found ways not to use him, and they drafted another running back, and I just don't think he's factored in there. Crowell's a good runner, but he fumbled a bit too much last year. And so now going into the season, I think you're looking at some sort of committee, because Johnson can catch the ball, right? Mm-hmm. You look at some sort of committee, but Johnson may be talented enough. He's a little smaller, but he could sort of start really moving up in the pecking order there as far as getting the ball more. What do you think?
Yeah, that's another situation I'm probably just going to stay away from. I just don't know how to handicap. We saw this all year last year, right? It was Tate, it was Crowell, it was It was Terrence West. It was someone different. And I mean, I remember we'd sit in the office and we'd go, why are we killing ourselves to figure out the Browns running back? Like, what is really in this for us? And I know it's fantasy football, and running backs are gold, and you always need more. And, you know, if nothing else, they can be trade chips and blah, 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 everything you hear. I just don't think any of those guys are good enough. I don't think that team is good enough. That offense is good enough to really worry about that much. I think Duke Johnson's a good player, like you said, with the pass catching. That's where it could be really interesting if he can really carve his niche there, plus get the ball, you know, just out of the backfield in general. But it's just one of those situations where, yeah, you're going to draft him. What's he going to be? Your fourth running back on draft day, something like that. Yeah. Maybe he plays his way up to an RB2, but probably he's going to be squarely in that flex back spot because I think he's going to be inconsistent just because of the team he's on. So I don't really see him as a guy I'm going out of my way to get. If he happens to fall to me, so be it. I'm not going to avoid him, but you know, it's just one of those situations where I don't really know what the payoff is when the season's over, if you're going to look back and say, oh man, I scored with Duke Johnson.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I just looked again. Our consensus is 40 at Fox. That's where I have him, actually. I have him at 40. If I have him a little higher than most of my colleagues. See, I like to make fun of Ryan Fowler and Adam Meyer, my two colleagues, because they're Browns fans, and they always rank Browns low. I always tell them they're so miserable because they're Cleveland fans, and they can't be optimistic about anything. Mm-hmm. So they always downgrade their own guys. All right, next up, wide receiver. Keenan Allen. I feel like I like Keenan Allen more than other people. His second year, he was probably a little disappointing last year, considering maybe based on what we were expecting of him after his rookie season.
Yeah, well,
I got him 15th. I'm a fan. I'm in.
Yeah, it's funny because you had him on the list, and I thought, is Keenan Allen that polarizing? Because I knew he disappointed last year. I went and looked it up, and I was like, oh, wow, he really disappointed last year. I didn't remember him being quite this bad. I think there was an injury mixed in there and what have you. Because, yeah, just my general feeling on him was like, oh, yeah, Keenan Allen, he's good, and he's on a pretty good team, and he's the number one, and Phillip Rivers is still pretty solid. They're going to throw the ball. He'll be fine. He'll bounce back, and I still feel that way. Like I said, even last year, I remember I did a thing every week called the most hated list, kind of updated it, and he was on there. He was always on there because fantasy owners seem to hate him, but I still, you know, think he's good, and I think that, you know, there's really no reason to think he won't be better this year, and he's talented. So I don't think I have him quite as high as you. I don't have him quite 15. I got him right in that lower teens, I think early 20s, but still a wide receiver 2 to me, and still a guy that I'll be fine if he's on my team.
Yeah, the Fantasy Pro stuff, I felt like people have him. Some people have him in the teens. A lot of people have him down around 30. So that's part of why I wanted to talk about him, because I feel like the opinion on him is pretty mixed. But yeah, I'm in again on Keenan Allen. What about Andre Johnson? I don't have to get the hot rookie, but I also tend to shy away from when a guy's near the tail end of his career, at least what I think might be the tail end, I tend to think better a year too early to be out than a year too late. I've got Andre Johnson way down. I think there's too many mouths to feed in that Colts offense, and as much as he's a famous guy who's had a great track record, who's going to help Andrew Luck, he's aging to me. I think I'm out. What about you?
Yeah, I'm always the guy who winds up with I don't intend to, but I always wind. Like, I just did a mock draft, and I was like, oh man, I got Roddy White and Marquez Colston. This is not awesome. Like, it sounds better than it always is. You know, Johnson's a guy, like, look, they lost 116 targets when they lost Reggie Wayne, right? I think the majority of those are going to go to Andre Johnson just because of the type of player he is. You know, people might be excited about Dorsett or Moncrief. I don't think they necessarily fit that role that the Colts have. They need that, you know, kind of possession receiver. He's not going to have a lot of big plays. I don't know about touchdowns. I think that could be, you know, that's been his issue his whole career, right? I still don't think he's ever had double-digit touchdowns for being one of the game's best receivers during his stretch in the league. So to me, he's that guy. He's that wide receiver 3 who's going to get you the yards every week, and if you get a touchdown, bonus. If he has 100 yards, bonus. But he's just going to be there. He's going to be solid. You know, I wouldn't necessarily shy away from drafting him. I'm certainly not going to reach for him. If he's there, I'll be fine with him, because I do think of those guys, like I mentioned, Roddy White, Marcus Colston, maybe Vincent Jackson you could put into that group. You know, you like some of them, maybe. They're all getting a little older now. I'd put Andre Johnson kind of maybe at the top of that group or right in the middle. I'd probably still take Vincent Jackson over him. Him and Roddy White, pretty similar. I look at it that way. But yeah, I mean, I definitely get your point. You don't want to swing and miss on the guy who's old, because you're just going to look at it at the end of the year going, why did I waste my time with that pick?
Right, and the thing is, I can see people liking it more than me. I don't even have him in the top 36, honestly. And I looked at that and I went, all right, maybe that's a little harsh. But I think people drafting him in the top 20 are asking for trouble. I know that's going to be an offense that throws a lot, and Luck's going to throw a lot, but to me, that's just that's too risky. Last guy, Allen Robinson and the Jags. He was doing pretty well last year before he got hurt. Seemed to be Blake Bortles' favorite target. I've got him 25th. I think the consensus is about 30th. I've got him a little higher than everybody. I think this is a guy he can catch 80 balls. The way he was going last year, I think he can catch 80 balls. Where are you on Allen Robinson?
Yeah, not as high as you, because I think you said the key phrase when you said Blake Bortles' favorite target. Like, what does that mean? No, it's just that's a guy that, he looks the part. He's 6'3", he's big. He had a lot of double-digit, target games last year. He had some big games here and there. We know at the beginning of last year was Allen Hurns. They still got Marquise Lee. They drafted Rashard Green. That's just, to me, Jaguars receiver is similar to Browns running back, where you kind of go, all right, what are we doing? It's going to be one guy one week. It's going to be another guy the next week. You're constantly going to be chasing the tail on these guys, benching them when they have the good games, starting them when they have the bad games. We know that on bad teams there can be good receivers because they're going to be throwing a lot to come back and this and that. But Robinson, another guy. If he's there, I'd draft him as a wide receiver 3, kind of toward the end of that group. If he's there, I'll take him. I'm not going to reach for him. If I don't get him, I'm not going to be sad. That's kind of the way I view him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in. I know what you mean about Blake Bortles. And I actually do think part of me wonders if he'll get dinged a little bit by Julius Thomas. Now, look, I know Julius Thomas is not going to be the same guy he was with Peyton Manning. But I tend to be a believer in young quarterback needing a security blanket. And I wonder if Julius Thomas is that instead of Allen Robinson. I still like Robinson. As a third wide receiver, I'm pretty happy to get him. I think I'll probably own him because I like him just a little better than some other people. Last one, tight end. Owen Daniels. Again, the reason we're talking about the guys we're talking about today is I told you I use fantasypros.com, and I use sort of the standard deviation on what people were looking at in the rankings, how widespread the opinions were. Just looking at Owen Daniels, the top ranking is 7th, the lowest ranking is 27th. I have him 12th. Are you a buyer in the Peyton Manning's gonna throw into the veteran target?
Well, I just think the problem with tight ends this year is it's terrible. I mean, it's terrible. We're sitting there trying to rank these guys, and you have the first 3. You have Gronk, you have Graham, you got Olsen, and then you go, I guess it could be this guy. I guess it could be Jordan Cameron. I don't know.
Travis Kelce. You don't downgrade Travis Kelce around here.
Oh, no, Travis Kelce's fine. We have him 5th, I think. And yeah, it's like you get some of those guys, and you go, all right, well, they're pretty good, I guess. But when you're trying to fill out the bottom half of that, of the tight end 1 rankings, I don't know who to put. Like, I think we have Owen Daniels like 8th or 9th, something like that, and it just seems about right. I'm not that excited about him. He's a guy that I think is going to be very hit and miss every week. This isn't a plug-and-play situation with the Broncos. I mean, Owen Daniels and Julius Thomas are about as different as it gets as far as tight ends. It's kind of like, I think last time I was on, we talked about Josh Hill, and it was kind of that same thing where I'm not excited about him in New Orleans, but some people really are. I mean, he's not the same as Jimmy Graham. So I look at Owen Daniels as a guy like, yeah, he's a starting tight end on draft day just because who else are you going to take? But I think he's going to be very, very hit and miss. And, I'd probably like to find someone a little less injury prone if that's possible. But, if I wind up with him as my starting tight end, so be it, just because I don't know who else I'm taking. I mean, Kyle Rudolph, am I going that route again? You want to try to roll the dice with Eric Ebron this year or something like that? I mean, good luck.
What about? So I know we talked last time. You're not a Josh Hill guy. What about Ladarius Green? Are you buying in now that Gates is out? How much more do you like him?
Yeah, Green was a guy that last year at this time there's a lot of people all in, and I seem to be the only one in my eyes. One of the few things I got right last year, I was like, Ladarius Green is not stopping everyone. He's not going to do anything, and then he didn't. But now he's got 4 games to prove himself, and then we say, well, what happens when that's done? If he's good, does he keep the job? Do they do more 2 tight end sets? I kind of like him this year just because of the uncertainty. It's tough to really go all in on him. If you take him, I think you have to take another tight end on draft day, which some people don't like to do. But I think we know he's talented. We know he's kind of got the old, freak freak athlete going for him, which I swear half of tight ends in the league are described that way now. But he does have that going for him, and I think he could definitely put up numbers those first 4 weeks and carry it over and still be pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, but that's a guy where I might rather have Ladarius Green and some other random tight end and get him really late than draft Owen Daniels in the, I don't know, 9th round. Where's he going? You know, something like that. I think I might rather go that route.
All right. That's going to wrap it for today. Matt, what else are you guys working on right now?
Well, I mean, we're cranking out rankings and we're cranking out sleepers and all that good stuff that, you know, people are dying for. And, of course, we still are doing our baseball coverage. And we actually have some Fantasy Premier League for those fans of other kind of fantasy football. So if you're looking for that, you can come to our site as well. So just all that good stuff on sportnews.com/fantasy.
Awesome. All right, everybody, again, please subscribe to, if you're listening on the podcast, please subscribe to Fantasy 15 on iTunes and SoundCloud. And keep watching our Hangouts. We're going to be doing it more often as the season gets closer. Also, we're going to be back with another podcast this week on Friday, so please come on back then. Thanks for watching, everybody, and for listening. For Matt Lutovsky, I'm John Halpin. Thank you for listening to the Fox Fantasy 15.